Welcome to Super Woo Radio, where we are awakening into being free and sovereign. It's a place where minds hurt and hearts sing as we break through the barriers that have been holding us back. Be prepared to have belief systems confronted as we take the journey of the truth seeker for answers to life's biggest questions. Remember, truth is stranger than fiction, so come along for an awareness-expanding experience with George and his amazing guest. Here on Super Woo Radio.
Hello and welcome, magnificent Earth humans and all you other magnificent and wonderful universal beings listening here to our multidimensional broadcast on Super Woo Radio, episode number 21.
Today, George is having a discussion with Mark Passio, a man who is a true mark of passion. He walks his talk and is not afraid to tell it how it is. In this episode, George and Mark speak home truths that people definitely need to hear, not what they want to hear. If people's sensitivities are a bit fragile, then there is a good chance they just may be affronted. George and Mark do not cater to people's belief systems. They are here to confront them. In fact, they're here to break them and even shatter them. This is a very raw, direct, and liberating episode. So enjoy this passionate discussion between two warriors of truth, telling it how it is, with your host, George Kavassilas, and his guest, Mark Passio.
Mark Passio, welcome to Super Woo Radio.
George, thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I will say it's an absolute pleasure too on my behalf, and it goes into the realms of being an honour as well. I've only just recently come across you and your work in this world this time around. The value and the worth of your word for me is very powerful. And these are the qualities that I look for. So thank you, Mark, for coming on. May we start with a brief bio for the people who are listening and who are not familiar with Mark Passio?
Sure. Well, my background is basically that I was born into a Roman Catholic family in South Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. And in my youth, I pretty much accepted the indoctrination of religion that was taught to me by my family. And they were kind of a family that didn't really question the status quo very much, still don't to any extent. But, I kind of bought wholesale the religious conditioning and indoctrination that they were giving to me that they had received through the church and through their schools, and then just passed that down to their children. And upon reaching a later age and really starting to think about what organized religion was all about, my feelings turned to anger, and I kind of realized that it was a control system, and it was being really used to keep people at bay and keep people placid and just not really taking action and getting them to accept their lot in life, I guess you could say. And having lacked a frame of reference in knowledge that religion really, all world cultural religions are derived out of astrotheological traditions. I had no knowledge of astrotheology at all at the time. That anger had nowhere to be channeled, and I didn't really have mentors and access to the truth as we have today in the modern world. And that anger really turned to hatred, and it was again, as I said, unchanneled, and I wanted to find the exact antithesis of organized religion.
Yeah.
And I found it, or at least felt that I had found it, in the form of Satanism. I gravitated toward dark occultism, specifically Satanism. And many people don't really have an understanding of what Satanism is. I don't really think we're going to get into that much today, but it's not what people think that it is. It's essentially a ideology that places the self on a pedestal and worships the ego, is kind of a simplified way of saying it. But it's basically taking self-preservation as the highest value and throwing morals out the window for the most part, in the sense that it believes in moral relativism. It's an ideology that espouses moral relativism. That essentially means there's no objective right or wrong, and what is good for the individual is what is good, and what is negative for the individual, or the outcome that you're looking to achieve, is what is bad. It doesn't really matter who else gets harmed in the process, or who else's freedom might be stepped on, etc. So it enshrines moral relativism essentially as one of its main tenets. This ideology I became involved with in a deeper way. After I started espousing it, I went into an organization known as the Church of Satan, which was on the west coast of the United States, and it was headed by Anton LaVey, who put out a lot of ideology about the satanic ideology / religion. And I became a priest in that organization and became involved in groups that were working toward, working with this ideology in my local area, in my local tri-state region. Once I became involved, I thought that I was just working with people who were isolated individuals, and they were just working with some of the knowledge that was contained in Satanism for their own benefit and their own, personal well-being, their own personal advancement. But my involvement with it grew, I became aware that these weren't isolated groups of individuals just working with some hidden knowledge for their own personal purposes, but it was groups of people that were comprised of an eclectic array of influential people and powerful people from every single walk of life and social institution on the face of the earth, including politics, law, military, law enforcement, banking, entertainment, technology, medicine, education, you name it. You name the social institution. There were Satanists that were entrenched in levels of influence and power at every single level of those institutions, specifically at the higher levels of them. And they weren't working just toward, individual aims. They were working toward a collective goal together as a very tight-knit unit of people. And that goal was to increase their own collective power at the expense of everybody else's freedom and everybody else's rights if they had to. When I became aware that this is really what the satanic hierarchy, or you could just say the global dark occult network that is in place and is ultimately running our world, when I realized that was their aim, was to obliterate human freedom and human rights, and basically aggregate more global centralized power, I backed out of my involvement with these organizations at that point because my conscience would not allow me to go forward and continue. I was all about looking into the dark occult side of things because I wanted to increase personal power and influence and, basically get a leg up on my fellow man, so to speak. But I wasn't about slavery. I never was about slavery. And really, that's what these groups were ultimately about at higher levels. I realized that they were acting, these lower level dark occult groups like the Church of Satan, the Temple of Set, and others, they were working as psychological filtration grounds that interfaced with the general public. And they were looking for people with certain personality traits, psychopathic personality traits, and certain skill sets also, which they could then exploit and groom those people up into higher levels of this dark occult hierarchy and network. And, then they would groom them and place them in the positions of power to advance their their group agenda. I again made it known that I didn't want to be involved in that, and there was no backlash. People would say, "Oh, well, didn't people come after you and say you have to maintain your involvement with our groups?" There was absolutely nothing like that occurred. It was they were so smug and so arrogant and so completely convinced that they had the world right where they wanted it and they had people's minds right where they wanted them, that they just said to me, "You think we need you? There's the door. Don't let it hit you in the rear end on the way out, and have a nice life trying to convince people of what's going on, because you'll be banging your head against a concrete wall for the rest of your natural existence." And that was their attitude. It was absolutely unconcerned. And so what I do today is I expose their agenda. I expose what's really going on in the world as far as human freedom is concerned. And I really talk about the way out of this control system that has been built up by dark occultists and their minions is through the understanding of natural law. And that's what I've dedicated my life to. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Fantastic. It's very colourful. It's very majestic in a way, in the sense of wisdom. You've had some very intense experiences. And in relation to these satanic, cultists and occultists, I feel that they are regularly underestimated, regularly disrespected for their capabilities. These people are very highly intellectual, and people just don't understand and respect what these people are actually capable of. And I have a great deal of respect for them. I have absolutely no liking of what they are doing. I do not resonate with them. I understand what they are doing, but I certainly do not underestimate them, and I have a very high regard and respect for them. But their arrogance is their weakness, and incredible weakness. They are very weak when it comes to being so enamored in their self-serving light. That is their grandest weakness, and for them it is their grandest power, which is really quite the double-edged sword for them, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely. I agree with everything you said there, particularly about the part where you said that they have high intellectual capabilities. And I love that you stated it that way and did not say that they are the most intelligent people, because there's a big difference between intellectual capacity and true holistic intelligence. And it's something that I really emphasize in my work. They have left-brained intellect, but that doesn't equate with balanced holistic intelligence. That comes from the intellectual capacities combining with the sacred feminine energies of the right brain and the creative and intuitive and compassionate side of the personality. And they certainly don't have that aspect going for them, if even a little bit, if at all. And they purely rely on their intellect and cunning for the most part. And that cannot be underestimated. These are some of the most intellectual individuals in the world, the most cunning individuals in the world, because many of them are psychopathic. They are psychopaths, primary and secondary psychopaths. And people should not underestimate their capabilities, because they have, very cunning thinking. Their emotions don't get in the way of what their agendas are. So conscience is nothing to them. They don't have conscience. Okay, not that that's a real aspect or a real benefit. Obviously that's a disadvantage spiritually and in the absolute nature of things. But regarding putting their agenda into effect without caring about who it hurts, to them and their goals, that's an asset. And people should not look at it like these are people who do not have the means and capability to carry out their goals and agendas in a very calculated and cold-hearted way, because that's exactly what they do. And therefore, we need to be street smart. We need to develop a streetwise understanding of what these individuals are doing and how they're espousing and propagating their ideology throughout our society, not just in their circles and in their network, but they've handed down to the public a lower level variant of this ideology of Satanism, and many people, they buy into it and don't even know what it is. And I like to call it egoism. Because it's really simply caring about the self in a self-serving capacity. It's buying into the idea that life itself is about nothing but service to self and what I can get, what I can take from other people, what I can build my life into, regardless of anything else that's going on in the world or any injustices, social injustices that are happening, regardless of anybody that may get hurt along the way. Morals play no bearing in that mindset. It's all about me, what I could get, what I could, acquire and keep ruthlessly at whatever cost to anyone else. And many people have bought into that ideology and don't even understand that that's what Satanism is.
Yeah, brilliantly said. I just love it. I love the way you so clear, the clarity and the concise nature in which you express yourself. It makes it very easy to understand. I love it, and your name too. I love your passion, which is very lacking. I feel the New Age religion has really worked. For years I've been calling it the pacification program, because it really seeks to apprehend human passion and sterilize the human nature. And your name, the mark of passion, and you are certainly, living that passion. And I get very passionate too. And the New Agers are going, "Oh, you're just so negative, George," or "You're angry." And I'm going, "I'm not angry. I'm passionate." Have you forgotten what passion is?
There's a big difference between unchanneled anger and very channeled and focused and directed righteous indignation, which is what we feel when we see the injustices taking place all around us in our world. We become warriors in a sense. To go to the etymology of my name, people know I love to break down the etymology of words, but it's very interesting that my name itself means compassionate warrior, or if you take it to another level, suffering warrior who suffers, or warrior who feels very, very deeply, the pain that others are experiencing. So I think it's like I didn't choose my name. Obviously, my parents chose it for me, but it's an amazing synchromistic synchronicity that is what my name would come out to, and in relationship to the work that I do now. So this is about feeling that connectivity and that sympathetic vibration with people that, and all the things that are going on that are unjust and need to be changed in our life. And that type of self-righteous indignation, which other people just group with all other forms of anger erroneously. There's a big difference between these two types of anger that I'm talking about. We need to harness that and use it to help act as a motivator for our behavior, for our actions, to set our actions into the right course, and then actually change things in the physical world in which we are living.
Yeah, brilliant. And I really do want to get straight into the big stuff. I want to cover the New Age religion, because that's a really big subject. It's very pertinent, and what you have to say about it is right in line with what I have to say about it. It's just so refreshing and validating in so many ways. It's lovely. But I want to get into this really big subject right now, and that is the biggest lie, because I've been saying to people, I'm just here to share about the way things are. I don't care what you think of me. I'm not interested in followers, and I've been saying this for years, and you have the same ethics, your same modus operandi. The question basically is the biggest lie. Share with me the biggest lie and moral relativism, because the two, one is spawned out of the other, isn't it?
Yes. And this is part of the earlier work that I've done. When I started speaking out, I really began with my podcast series talking about this religion. And it really is a religion, because by definition, a religion that is not based in truth, that is based in a belief system, is something that holds us back from where we want to go. It's a binding. It's chains that we voluntarily put on to ourselves through what we believe, through a calcified, hardened belief system that's not based in truth. So this religion that I have termed the biggest lie is something known as solipsism. And I'll spell that for the listeners so they can go out and look this up and learn more about this very dangerous ideology. It's called solipsism, and that's spelled SOLIPSISM. And what solipsism is it's a general belief or an ideology that there is no such thing as objective truth, that truth is a concept that does not really exist, and that all there is in creation or in the universe is perception. So, in other words, all that I could possibly do is perceive something, and that's the only thing that's real to me. Nothing else objectively is real. In other words, I'm the only one, and my perceptions are the only thing that matters. This is basically egoism taken to its highest extreme, if you really think about it. I don't think there could be any better example of somebody thinking that they are all that matters. And when you this really comes out of brain imbalance. The whole ideology, people will say, oh, you're just saying that because you don't like this ideology and you're trying to call somebody sick who believes in it. No, I'm not. I'm trying to explain the only way that you can possibly believe in the ideology of solipsism, that there is no such thing as any objective truth that exists outside of one's own mind, is itself if your mind is diseased, if your brain and psyche are imbalanced toward one brain hemisphere or the other. And coming to a level of true spiritual awakening means that the brain is balanced, and then it's going in conjunction with the heart energies. Okay, so no one who is well or is balanced toward both brain hemispheres working together holistically can possibly accept the notion of solipsism. I call solipsism spiritual infancy. It's like people whose psyche and their mind and their constitution in their heart isn't strong enough to accept that truth exists independently of one's own perceptions, and that what our goal in life should really be for ourselves is to advance our perceptions to a point where we bring them into alignment with the truth. See, that's the human being's work. The work or the goal of the human being is we need to align our perceptions to the objective truth which already exists independently from ourselves. And this is what people who believe in solipsism don't want to accept, because that's hard work to do that kind of alignment with one's perceptions. You have to shed your existing identity, you have to shed your existing beliefs about what is, and then you have to go out and do hard work and research and reading and changing inside your own personal views about what is real and what is true. And solipsists, they just believe, well, only my mind is sure to exist. That's all, and therefore I could just look at the world and I could decide whether that's, this is the way that it is or not. And it's not affecting anybody else because, they believe there's no objective reality. Nothing can really be known about the so-called external world. Right, or its workings. So, hey, I can't really know anything about myself if that's how I think too, right? I can't understand the human psyche. I can't understand human motivations or desires. I can't work with my own inner being and really come to any self-knowledge, because there's no such thing as knowledge in solipsism. So this is what solipsism is in a nutshell. It's the idea the universe revolves around me. Nobody else is real, essentially. The whole external universe is just a construct that's here for my own amusement, my own perceptions, and nothing can really be known. There's no such thing as knowledge. I need to do no work to come to an understanding of truth, because there is no truth. That's solipsism. And I'm telling people, there's so many people who are stuck in this belief system. And people who would immediately hear this and they're not a solipsist, and they recognize and accept that there is such a thing as objective truth, they'll say, oh my God, how can you even say there's tons and tons of solipsists? I'm telling people out there, this religion is so much more widespread than you think it is.
Yes.
It is out there in a big way, and the biggest place that it's out there is in the New Age movement.
Yes.
So many people have been turned to this notion, this ideology of solipsism, because they want people focused on the idea that truth can never be known. Don't even bother going out looking for it, because, see, then you won't go into the realm of knowledge. You won't go into studying about what's going on in the world. You won't see all the negative things, and therefore you won't try to change them. And that's what solipsism is there for. Now, for anybody who is hearing what I'm saying and really understanding what solipsism is, you're going to recognize very readily that this plays hand in hand with moral relativism, with the notion that there is no such thing as objective right and wrong.
Yes.
Okay? So if there's no such thing as truth, it's a very easy and quick and slippery slope right down to the ideology of moral relativism, that there can be no such thing as objective right and wrong. Well, no one can know the truth about what right is. No one can know the truth about what wrong is, what wrongdoing is, because there is no truth, and we get to make it up as we go along. So most solipsists ultimately become moral relativists in their mind, in their psyche. And that's the very dangerous aspect of that, because then once you go to moral relativism, okay, then the idea of I'm the only one who matters, the egoism, which is a hallmark of Satanism, and then that descends into social Darwinism, that those who are basically have the will to take power in a society are the ones who have the right to basically rule the pecking order, if you will. And that'll descend even further into total control systems, totalitarianism, eugenics, etc. You could see the slippery slope that starts at this concept that I call the biggest lie, that there's no such thing as truth. So that's what I consider the biggest lie, this ideology of solipsism, and people have to be they have to understand it and be very wary of it, because it's very much today, it's the case that it is extremely peddled in the New Age community, and people have to really understand it for the lie that it is.
Oh, absolutely. People say to me, all truth is relative, and I go, no, it's not. There's universal facts. And I say to them, well, is this aspect of you incarnate on earth right now with me? Am I speaking to this aspect of you? Isn't that a universal fact? It's the same for you and it's the same for me. There is no relativeness about it whatsoever.
Right.
And then you get the people that say, oh, this is all just an illusion. This isn't really happening. Oh, my goodness. What a cracker that is.
I would say this is a construct. Physical matter certainly is a construct for experience and learning and growth. Absolutely. When we look into matter, we recognize that it's just vibratory energy vibrating at different frequencies. I won't debate that, but that doesn't mean that the experience is not real.
Exactly.
The experience and the learning process and the growth process is real.
Exactly.
That's happening in the spiritual domain, which is the spiritual domain. The physical domain is the construct for the spirit to have those experiences.
Yeah.
So they're one and the same. The idea of the spirit should not take precedence over the physical world, nor should the physical material world take precedence over the spirit. I try to explain to people these are one and the same, and the physical realm is merely a construct for the spiritual realm to have experiences. And that does not mean you just say it doesn't matter and you throw out the physical world and you throw out matter. Absolutely not. Matter is essential. It is essential to that learning and growing process. And therefore, we have to become understanding of that there is objective truth, and there are things that have taken place in the physical world in the past, and that has become what has happened. That is the truth about what has occurred in our world, and this can be known. It's not an eternal mystery. It's not something the creator of the universe placed here to torment us endlessly so we couldn't understand the truth about things. The truth is knowable. It's objective. It's there. It's always going to be there, and it's knowable. The problem is humanity has to develop the desire to want to know it and then go out and do that work. And there's where that's the catch, you know what I mean? There's where the problem comes in. Many people don't want that responsibility of knowledge. They don't want that responsibility to have to go out and do that hard work, because it's not easy at the place of lies and deception that we've come to. The truth is difficult to come to know in many cases, and it takes work and it takes time and effort and patience and dedication and attention. And people don't want to spend those resources on learning all the things that are negative with this world so that they can then empower themselves to go out and change it. They're trying to absolve themselves of that personal responsibility by remaining in ignorance. That's the problem that we face.
Oh, exactly. I say to people, it's not original sin, it's original intent. Own it. This is about ownership of our lives
That's
here.
right.
It's about
Yes.
responsibility, and through that comes obligations. And that's why I say it's the biggest cop out to say this is all just an illusion. These are the
That's right.
people that haven't the intestinal fortitude and the mental capacity and the spiritual aptitude, basically, to deal with the reality of the life that they willingly wanted to incarnate and experience with. They haven't got it. And so what they do is they just cop out and just devalue their whole life's experience here. It's really quite fascinating the way they feel so insecure about their own selves and can't bear to really, to bear witness of self, to do that self-analysis, to confront the programs that need, tending to, that we need to deal to task with within our own inner world. It's just amazing. I find it very sad because, when we look at the work that you and I are doing, and we look at the people out there, what I call New Age luminaries, they are so transparent. We all need to be transparent. And at the same time, we can really see with I would say the shortcomings of their teachings are not that we are better than, but I was there and I've done the hard work. You were there. You've done the hard work within yourself to get to a place where you can be really grounded and balanced in your approach to life. And that's what needs to happen. All these people in the New Age religion are not grounded. They're all I call them, they're living in Ignorance Street in Blissville,
Right. Absolutely. It's an immature variant of real spirituality. They're giving people a tiny, tiny little taste or a sampling of some deeper level spiritual truths, but it's so wrapped up in a candy sugar coating, that doesn't really teach the the necessity of the hard work that's going to be required. It's trying to sell people on an idea that you're going to receive some type of spiritual enlightenment without having to go through a hard introspective process that is painful and it is destructive. Real spiritual work takes away from something that is there. People think it adds to it. I keep trying to explain to people, real spiritual work is destructive. It is a destructive process. It breaks down all of the lies and the untruths and the barriers that were holding you back. It's like a wrecking ball breaking down a wall, or it's like a hammer and chisel chiseling away at stone to reveal what's underneath. It strips away the dirt and the grime that we ourselves have put there and that has been put there through our cultural indoctrination processes. And the reason people don't want to take that self-ownership and of their own personal responsibility to do that work is they want to remain in that spiritual immature nature. They want to remain in that cage because once they understand that the world is not anything like what it looks through the rose-colored glasses that they've been wearing. Okay, they are then going to realize that they themselves, upon acquiring that knowledge, have a personal commitment and responsibility to do something to really make that change happen in the physical world. So, as you said, them just saying the physical world doesn't matter, it's all an illusion anyway, is a cop-out for that responsibility. And that's all about wanting to stay a child. And what they're doing is they're building up this notion of happiness and peace within their little bubble community, okay? And they're saying, well, I'm going to be all happy and jolly and just thinking everything is so wonderful and peaceful because I have some other friends who think this way too, and we meet and get together. But really, all of that's happening within a worldwide, global scenario of slavery. Of absolute tyranny and slavery. So it would be like being put in a large cage, okay? And maybe the cage has borders that are like, a couple of miles away from you at the time. And you're just going to say, well, even though we're encaged here, we're totally enslaved here and we're in a cage, we're just going to have a party in the cage. That's all. That's all. We're not going to try to break the barriers of our cage. We're not going to try to actually live as free beings. We're going to stay within the cage, and we're going to party our rear ends off here in the cage. And that's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing that we've chosen to do. And see, what it comes down to is all of this fake spirituality that they've been fed with, of course, elements of truth within it. I can't say a blanket statement and say everything that's taught in the New Age movement is bad or wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they're feeding people these subtle deceptions, with some spiritual truths, wrapped up within them, so that they're then easily taken. They're saying this fake spirituality that they've been accepting. It's all there just because these individuals are so fearful about what it's really going to take to make any real progress. They've been fed this idea that it's going to just take a little bit of people, creating this big, huge change to make this shift in consciousness take place that we're looking for. But really, that's not what a quantum shift, how a quantum shift is created in consciousness. Quantum itself means number. It means an amount of something, from the Latin word quantum. It means an amount or a number. And a quantum shift is only going to be driven by bringing the knowledge of the truth to a number of people that are capable of creating a critical mass shift in consciousness. That's not going to be a small number. People have to start thinking differently and acting differently, most of all, behaving differently. Only when behavior changes on a mass level, in mass numbers, not just in small numbers, in mass numbers, are we going to see the world actually change. So they're ultimately trying to absolve themselves of the responsibility to do that true great work, which is much more difficult than this pseudo-spiritual change that that's been peddled to them, and that they've bought into believing is going to be very easy to achieve. It's not going to be as easy to achieve as the New Agers have been led to believe. It's going to take hard, dedicated work that involves time, that involves patience, that involves a lot of attention, a lot of knowledge being taken into the self, working with the shadow material that's inside of us all, and ultimately changing thought patterns, nested and calcified thought patterns and behavior in mass numbers.
Yes. Yeah, and I look around the world and I feel that, we're doing the work early, and I look at the world and I think, well, the majority of the masses are not doing this kind of work on themselves. And I'm seeing that they will have to go through it collectively. So there will be some major events that will take place in the world that will really trigger a lot of this work, this inner work and this process. I'm really looking forward to the times ahead. I really am. I don't fear them. I embrace them, just like I embraced all of my fears, all my negativity, all my shadow side. I have no regrets. And the issue with the New Age religion, and the reason why they're falling into that trap too, is because they live in denial of their own shadow. They therefore have no idea of the capability. That's why they have no respect for the negative programs. They basically live in denial of them. They don't even see them. They don't acknowledge them. They don't recognize them. They can't handle the frequency of negativity. And this is again, it comes back to your statement, the fear of freedom and the child syndrome. I love that statement.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is really all about. This is about the desire to stay a child mentally, psychologically, and spiritually, and not actually grow up and develop personal responsibility to understand what real spirituality is. And real spirituality is inextricably connected from right action in the world. And that's what's left out of the New Age movement. The action, the active component, the masculine component. See, it's all feminine energy, which, hey, I've spent a year practically on my program explaining that the control system is completely out of balance in the masculine energy. Too much of that. No sacred feminine energy, no care, no compassion, no intuitive or creative capacities. But this New Age religion is exactly the opposite, and that's why it can't see many of the control systems, agendas, and methodologies, because it's all feminine energy with no sacred masculine energy, which is about logically looking at something, focus, getting things done, acting in the physical world, understanding in many cases in a linear progression, complex ideas. You can't understand them immediately. They have prerequisite knowledge. And to understand that complexity, you may need to understand the building blocks first. That's a linear progression of understanding. The New Age community, or what I would just call people who are really stuck in high levels of right brain imbalance. They're one and the same, essentially. They don't have all of those left brain capacities built and exercised, within their mind. They haven't worked with that enough. And if the mind is like a muscle, if you don't work with different aspects of it, like if I just did all the activities of every day of my life with my right arm and never use my left arm and just let it dangle at my side, it would atrophy. Okay. And my right arm would start looking big and muscular and healthy. And my left arm would start looking thinner and thinner and weaker. And it would be. So it's the same thing here. It's all right brain energy and all sacred feminine energy, which is a wonderful thing and needs to be present to balance the masculine, but they're not working with the masculine energies in many cases. And this is what I did on my website and podcasts, putting out information about the deceptions within a New Age movement. And the subtitle of that presentation, which was called New Age BS, the subtitle of it was The Suppression of the Sacred Masculine.
Yes.
Because ultimately that's what this religion is about. It's suppressing the active masculine components of the personality, which are absolutely critical for bringing balance and holistic intelligence.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because lately, and this is the first time I'm going to speak of this publicly, I have been personally having to deal with what I can only explain as queen bitch of the universe. That is the only way I can explain this energy. She is so, I just can't tell you how disgusting the energy is of this female entity who is behind so much of what is going on in the New Age community, because she's ready to present herself as the divine feminine and is the biggest deception going on the planet at the moment. She's the one that's actually behind the patriarchal hierarchy on this planet, because she wanted to eliminate all female competitors so she can be queen bitch, basically. And she's not the true divine feminine. She's a wannabe. And that is an energy that I feel people are really falling into the allurement and the entrapment of her programs. Very, very serious problem on our planet right now. And there are other people that I've spoken to who have been deep into the mix of the New Age community and have woken up and had personal experiences with this feminine entity. And this is a very, very serious issue. I don't know how else to put it, but it is. I just got to put it out there and slam everyone with a brick in the face to do with this energy.
Well, many people in the alternative research community who research into Satanism and dark occultism feel that they have their queen in these organizations and this satanic hierarchy.
That is who she is.
And that's this dark and feminine presence or energy that is about derailing the true sacred feminine, because and think about this, what better way to do that than to create a masculine hierarchy?
Exactly. Blame the masculine.
Because then true care and true sacred feminine energy is going to vanish from the world at that point. That's no better way of accomplishing that goal. People have to understand about the New Age movement is that the original intent of this type of spirituality that people want to come to know, and you can't totally and completely fault people for falling for this, because it's a subtle deception and people have good intentions, but as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Good intentions aren't enough, as we've said. You have to have knowledge too, and you have to put care, between that intention, that knowledge, and understand that it's a balancing act. It's all about balance. That it always comes back to that. You need practical real world skills. You need focus. You need attention. You need drive. Those masculine things balance the spiritual aspects of the feminine energy. And what the New Age community has allowed to happen by holding this, positive intention, but not using enough streetwise knowledge to balance it, and they're not seeing how they have subtly been misled, okay, through people that have co-opted and taken over the so-called New Age movement or religion. What they've allowed to happen is their real spiritual mission has been derailed, okay, and this is something that is very important for people to understand. All these New Age so-called spiritualists, or I'll even just call them, they were original spiritual warriors that came to this planet for a purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And by getting involved in this religion and staying attached to this religion, developing attachment to its ideology, okay, they have allowed their actual real spiritual mission to be derailed. And that real spiritual mission that all of those people incarnated to really do, to perform in action on this planet, was to lead a rebellion against slavery on the earth.
Perfectly said. And that is exactly the process that I have been living. I've spoken in my last couple of interviews. I haven't aired yet. One of them has. Another one is to air soon on this weekend. I tell you, it is all about bringing forth the inner warrior archetype that is inside of us, that this New Age religion and this feminine entity has apprehended, has rendered powerless. And we have to, activate our guardian archetype. We have to activate our protector archetype. We need to step up into action, and we need to start being more proactive in our approach, because she has cut us off at the knees. This entity and her programs, they are so clever. People just underestimate how seductive this woman is. And the more we can actually come to that realization and awaken, because I'm a big proponent of the divine feminine. I am. I've been getting out there and I've been talking about the true sacrifice of the divine feminine, and how we all carry that archetype within each and every one of us as well. And, we need to understand and differentiate between the genuine divine feminine, her true sacrifice, and this wannabe, this other entity that's stolen her identity and is masquerading as the divine feminine, because she's doing a total number on so pretty much all of the ruling elite. Basically, all the powers of wannabe, she's done a total number on them. And it really is sad to see what is happening in this world as a result.
And, all the people who, again, came here to participate in a rebellion against this dark negative energy and the dark world that they're bringing to fruition as a result of it running rampant, they've been sidetracked from their true mission, which, as I said, was to lead a rebellion against slavery on this planet. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean a physical rebellion.
No, it doesn't.
This means doing everything we can to do this in a way that is done in consciousness. But you can't do that unless you have the drive to put these ideas forward and not just say, well, I understand the non-aggression principle, so I'm fine, and I don't need to explain this to anybody else, or I need to just let other people do whatever they're going to do, and not get involved in any of that, and not challenge any of it with words and then actions if necessary. And all you're really letting happen in that instance is you're letting evil run amok in our world, on our planet, and you're letting slavery continue unchallenged and unabated. And when you do that, you're not going to create any kind of a positive change through that type of inaction and that type of standing down. Okay, all that's going to happen as a result of that type of behavior, of just, sitting back in a timid way and just seeing the world through the rose-colored glasses, because the New Age movement tells you that, oh, it's none of it's negative, it's all just an experience, there's no such thing as evil, okay, is you're just going to get more and more and more and more of that negativity, more and more of that chaos, more and more of that evil, until your ego finally breaks and you finally say, no, this was wrong. This is a wrong idea that I've been taught and that I bought into. I was wrong for buying into it. And real world physical action challenging this all forms of slavery, whether it be mental bondage, whether it be financial slavery, whether it be actual physical ball and chain slavery, whether it be religious slavery, you name it. All forms of slavery, governmental slavery, all forms of it have to be abolished. That's what we're here to bring about. And people will say, oh, you're talking about some kind of a utopia. No, I'm just talking about people living in accordance to the principles of natural law. The non-aggression principle combined hand in hand with the principle of self-defense. The idea that if your rights and your freedom and your property is being harmed, you have a right to physically defend yourself. You have a right to physically defend what belongs to you. That you mentioned a word earlier that these people have to really come to understand more and more, and it's really become the heart and soul, the crux of the teachings that I put forward with natural law, or what many, including I believe yourself, have just simply termed universal law or universal spiritual law, and that is the concept of ownership. We really need to understand what we own, what we do not own. That's the crux of natural law, because all natural law really comes down to don't harm someone else and don't steal and take what is not yours. That's it. We don't take anything that does not belong to us. If we look at all the wrongdoings that can be committed, I explain to people that they're all forms of theft. They're all forms of taking from someone else, from some other being, that which does not belong to you. And this is what the New Age community has been prevented from seeing. They've been prevented from seeing natural law. I try to explain to people that what the New Age movement is it is a religion that has been invented by this control system, okay, and by this dark energy, okay, it's put forward many subtle deceptions which have been disguised as spiritual teachings. And it lures people in who want what I call feel-good spirituality. It lures them in because it says, well, there's nothing really bad or negative or truly evil. These are all just inventions of religion, okay? And I would be the first to tell you, hey, religion puts out a lot of nonsense that is all for control and all for just getting people to go along with their agenda too, just like government and politics does. But that doesn't mean that we have to feel that there's no such thing as evil. Okay, there is evil in the world. Believe me, there's evil. I've been in the heart of it. Okay, I've seen more evil in my life than most people will see in 100 lifetimes. All right, and I'm telling you, it's real. It exists. But they're giving them this watered down variant of spirituality, so they're insulating them from deeper spiritual truths that are part of what I call streetwise spirituality. This is a term I want to start coining more and more in my work, and I'd actually like to almost kind of make it a moniker and coin this term. What I do is present streetwise spirituality, and this is understanding of what natural law really is and what our actual rights are when we are becoming accosted by someone else, and people don't want to look at this side of things. They want to just see. I tell people I am a proponent to my dying day, and will be, okay, of the non-aggression principle. This is a real spiritual teaching. It's streetwise spirituality too. It is real. The non-aggression principle simply states, do not initiate violence against your fellow beings, period. In a nutshell, that's it. Don't start a coercive behavior against anybody else. If you start that's called violence, and you are held accountable for that, and someone else has the right to stop you from doing it. So, that's what the non-aggression principle is in a nutshell. What most New Age spiritualists haven't gotten is the component of the masculine principle, which goes hand in hand with the non-aggression principle. Okay, it states that if violence is being done to someone, yourself included, okay, beings in the universe have a right to stop that behavior from continuing. And what's going on with human beings on the earth right now is we're being kept under a continuous state of duress, which is violence, of threatening. It's a threat of bodily harm. I'll give an example. Okay, and this is what New Agers have to really deeply grasp. And this is an intrusion upon self-ownership. Okay, the government of the United States, people will say, oh, it's a democracy or it's a constitutional republic. That's what it is in word. In word, it's told to us that it is a constitutional republic, and many people, take on this term democracy. It's not intended to be a democracy. It's intended to be a constitutional republic. And that's not what this nation is in deed. De facto government means what it is indeed. That's what de facto means from the Latin, of action, of behavior, of deed. So what is it indeed? In deeds, what we have is, and I'll come to that in a moment, but this is what explains what this government is indeed, okay? And it's amazing that I even use the term indeed, because I'm going to talk about ownership of land, of property, okay? So if I make a house on a piece of land and I use that house, that's property, okay? I've created it when it was not there before through my actions, my energy. It's there, and now I'm using it for something. Ownership involves a few things. It involves you acquired it lawfully, so I didn't take that house from someone else. I didn't go in and, it wasn't a house that existed there and I went in and killed somebody for it, okay? I lawfully acquired those materials and put that there, and I lawfully own it, okay? It's lawfully in my possession. And then you have to be using it. Okay, if you just abandon something, okay, then you're not using it anymore. It isn't yours, okay? There's certain things we can abandon, like physical objects that are in our possession. Like I have a coin in my hand right now. That's my property, okay? I could abandon it, and if I go and throw this out in the street, well, then it's no longer my property because I've abandoned it. And if I leave it there, someone else has a right to pick it up, all right? So usage is involved in ownership. And then the final thing is responsibility. You have to be responsible for what you own. I own my body. I have to be responsible for its upkeep. I have to be responsible for the actions I perform with it. Okay? If I own the house, I have to be responsible for its upkeep, etc. So it's rightful possession, usage, and responsibility for it. Okay? Let's say we have that for our homes, let's say. Okay? But there are people in this institution called government that would say to us, you have to pay me a certain amount every year for services which you can't refuse. And if you don't do that, I'm going to come and take your home. This, of course, is called a property tax. And, people will say, well, that's for services. Well, a service is something you voluntarily choose to conduct an exchange for. Okay? A tax cannot be refused. They're saying that you don't have a choice. That's coercion. That's taking someone's free will away. All right. If I can't refuse a service, how is it a service and not a threat? Okay. If I tell you I'm a computer technician, I repair computers, I'm now your computer technician, whether you need computer service or not, and you're going to pay me $50 a month for my services, whether you want to or not. And if you don't do it, I'm taking the computer. That's called coercion. Okay. And that is a crime. All right. And no one has a right to do that. Just because they, are in a certain institution called government doesn't give them the magic right to do that. So to go back to my point here, and this is all leading back to the point of the imbalance of no masculine energy and all feminine energy. When we develop this concept called a property tax, you're telling someone you don't really own your home. Because if you stop paying me this arbitrarily chosen amount, which can go up at any time, okay, then I'm coming and taking that actual piece of property away from you. Well, there is a form of government. So again, to go back to what is the de facto form of government in the United States, all right? And actually throughout the world, wherever property tax exists. The de facto form of government is the type of government by which you are only permitted to live upon a piece of land, and you are acting as a steward for that land, but the land is actually owned by someone else. You are living in it, working on it, using it. It's owned by someone else, and if you don't pay tribute to that other being, that they can put you off that land at any given time, or send their goon squad to then put you off of that land or do harm to you if you refuse. People may recognize this as a form of ancient government known as feudalism.
Yeah, exactly.
The king owns all the property, all the land. Serfs, who are his slaves or subjects, only get to live on the land as long as they pay tribute to the crown. That's called feudalism. And indeed, okay, in actual point of fact, the de facto form of government of the United States is feudalism. Now, but feudalism is a euphemism, all right? And there's a nice little rhyme. Feudalism is a euphemism,
Yeah.
right? A euphemism is just a polite way of saying something that's pretty non-polite and pretty dastardly and pretty sick, okay? But you're not trying to offend, or you're not trying to make people upset. And that's what the New Age movement does. And that's what politically correct speech is all about. It's about euphemizing evil, okay? Feudalism is simply a euphemism for slavery.
Yes.
Okay, that's all it is. That's all it ever has been. All right. So the condition that we're really living in isn't a constitutional republic. It isn't freedom. It isn't a democracy. It isn't any of those things. It's not even ownership of the property that you say you live on and that you own. You don't own your house. We don't own our homes in the United States. Okay, someone else owns them. We pay them a tribute called a property tax, and we're only living on that land that someone else claims to own. That's called feudalism, which is merely a euphemism for slavery.
Yes.
That's the de facto government in the United States and throughout the world. And what, again, the New Age movement is, and when I said this to someone who was a New Ager, they said to me, here's the comeback they came at me with, George. They said, I prefer not to see it that way.
Yeah.
And you know what that is? It's called solipsism. Well, your perception determines the reality then, doesn't it? Right? It only matters what you think. It only matters what you perceive. And really the answer to that is, no, it's not that they prefer not to see it that way. They prefer not to see. Full stop.
Willful denial.
That's it. And think about it. Willful ignorance always comes from the fear of owning personal responsibility.
And I must, the way that you talk about ignorance, I just love the emphasis. Sorry to interject there and cut you off, but I needed to make that point.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's willfully ignoring something that is real and is true and is active in our life. And people think if we ignore it, it'll go away. If we ignore it, it won't get worse. You know, when you ignore a symptom that is physical, all that happens is it fosters, it ferments, it gets worse, it grows. Okay, and that's what the New Age movement is fostering. It's in this state of ignorance, of not wanting to look at uncomfortable truths. All you're going to do is allow them to fester and just grow bigger and bigger and bigger and create more and more chaos. And see where this comes from. You know, I'm glad that you brought up this willful ignorance notion, because if you go deeper than if you just start psychologically analyzing this condition and looking at where does willful ignorance come from, you go down to a lower level causal factor for why would people willfully ignore truth? Well, it's got to be because they fear something. Ignorance is born of fear at all times and places.
Yes.
So what would they fear? What would they fear that true knowledge would bring? Well, true knowledge is real power. Okay, and that's bringing one into personal responsibility to do the right thing, to take right action. So willful ignorance always has as its causal factor in the psyche, psychologically, the fear of the ownership of our personal responsibility to act in the right way in the world. That's
perfect.
what people are trying to absolve themselves of.
Okay, we're going to pause it right there, come up for air, and take a short break at the end of the first segment of this magnificent and intensely powerful discussion. Please stay with us, as it will be a short break, and then we will resume in the second hour as our passion gets even greater. Our Universal Journey is a unique book of self-empowerment on a universal scale and beyond, exposing not only the planetary matrix, but also the cosmic matrix. It is a unique perspective surpassing the paradigms of science, religion, the occults, and the New Age. The level of knowledge and wisdom shared is the foundation for awakening into an aware and conscious being, and consequently, freedom and sovereignty of spirit. Our Universal Journey comes in paperback, as an ebook, and also a full-length audiobook, and is available at ouruniversaljourney.com.au. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Superwoo Radio are not necessarily the views and opinions held by me, the host George Kavassilas, and Superwoo Radio. In today's world, it is crucial to exercise discernment, but it is also just as important to seek common ground and share in the perspectives that unite us. The music for this episode is brought to you by Medwin Goodall. The album, Druid 2, and is available at medwingoodallmusic.net. Welcome back to the second hour of Superwoo Radio, episode 21, here with Mark Passio, as we now continue our discussion on natural law and the New Age deception.
Then you look at, well, hey, where does that fear of owning one's personal responsibility come? Why wouldn't anyone want to own personal responsibility? Well, it's because they want to remain a child. They don't want... See, true personal responsibility means spiritual adulthood. It means growing up spiritually and really being enlightened as to what's going on, and then truly being responsible, carrying a moral responsibility to act in the right way, to set things correct in the world. And they don't want that. So where does that come from? That comes from self-loathing. Ultimately, no one would want to remain eternally a child, okay? I mean spiritual child, unless they had some type of self-loathing issues within. You cannot truly love yourself if you want to remain a spiritual infant. You have to, at some level, psychologically, at some level, you have to have issues of self-loathing and self-respect. You cannot have true self-esteem and true self-love if you don't understand self-ownership. And again, to tie this all back into the New Age religion, what this has done is it's keeping people in this bubble, okay, so as to try to keep telling them, oh, there's nothing bad or evil going on in the world, and say, oh, it's not our responsibility to help other people to change, and therefore change the world. It's taking them off of their mission to lead a rebellion against all of these forms of slavery in the world. We were initially we were spiritual warriors that came to this planet, and the goal was going to be, we're going to free this planet. This planet and its people are enslaved by what they think.
Yes.
And then their thoughts control their behaviors, and their behaviors manifest their reality. So it starts in how we think, it progresses to how we behave, and then it manifests as how the world is. That's how we create our reality collectively in the aggregate. Okay. And we incarnated here to lead a rebellion against that mental bondage, to lead that rebellion against the physical bondage that the people of this planet are held in. And we were supposed to be leaders in that capacity. And unfortunately, 99% of our ranks as the true spiritual leaders, and I'm not saying that means that we're in charge. I'm saying leaders insofar as being the first people to put out the real truth and the real ideas about what's going on here and what needs to change here. That's how I mean the term leader, okay? Not in any kind of authoritative leader, all right? Just setting an example, let's say, okay?
Leading by example.
Yes, 99% of our mission crew was hijacked, and it was hijacked into the New Age movement. And again, what that set us off the mission of is leading the rebellion against slavery on Earth. That's what this was designed to do. And so what I seek to do is to help bring people out of that fairy tale version of spirituality, or the feel-good spirituality.
Yes.
And I hope to help them to see true streetwise spirituality, and then that can get them on their mission to becoming a spiritual warrior in this world again.
Oh, Mark, you speak straight to my heart. That is exactly what I stand for. It is exactly what I embody. That's why I came to this planet. I am here to free humanity from their slavery. That's why I came here. My wholehearted soul intention of my wanting to be here in this world is that, and I call it my fundamental purpose. See, I explain to people we have all these lesser karmic roles, interactions of being children, of sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and husbands and friends and lovers, and we play all these other roles, and they're all the minor karmic roles that we're sorting out. But we have beneath, in the foundation of our existence here, beneath all of those minor karmic roles, we have what I consider and label our fundamental purpose in life, and that is what is our great work. And it's what I teach. It's in my course that I'm writing. It's what I've been sharing for many years now, and it brings joy to my heart to hear you speak, express, and embody this the way you do. It's fantastic. And Mark, there is something I want to read out, and this is going to sound really harsh to some people. You had it as part of your presentation, and this spoke volumes. This spoke absolute volumes to me, and I'm going to literally have a go at all the people who are sitting back, sitting pretty in their little bubble bomb, Blissville bomb, which they're stuck in their mind control programs where they think they can just pretend everything is lovey-dovey, where I continue to say, Mark, I say where people are burping butterflies and farting rainbows, because they are caught up in Blissville big time. And this is a statement by Samuel Adams, and it goes like this: if you love wealth greater than liberty, the tranquility of servitude greater than the animating contest for freedom, go home from us in peace. We seek not your counsel, nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hand that feeds you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may your posterity forget that you were our countrymen. Now that is harsh, but that is reality.
There it is. I mean, think about this. He gave that speech to people who he was imploring to assist the American revolutionaries in the war for independence against the encroachments and advances of the British into the colonies. And many of them had businesses, they lived out in the countryside, and they had beautiful homes, and, they were doing very well for themselves financially in a very rich land full of resources, and they just wanted to be comfortable. And he was basically saying to them, what good is all the comfort of all those resources and riches when you have no freedom, when you're in a cage, when you are a slave, you know? And people will say, oh, of course, we came and took this country from the existing inhabitants. Absolutely. That's part of all the karmic debt that is built up here as well. Let's not ignore that either. But, what he was basically saying is we're coming under attack right now, in the place where we are living now, and even regardless of how that was acquired initially. These people are bringing us into slavery and bondage. And hey, that could be because of the karmic debt that happened in the past, that was accrued in the past. Absolutely. But he was telling them, if you don't do something now and take action now and stand up and speak out and actually get involved, you're going to live on this land as slaves, possibly forevermore. And many of them were saying, well, I'm comfortable and I want to just keep my head down so I don't take a chance, and then my business gets taken and my home gets taken, etc. But what good are any of those things if you're not free? And that's what he was basically saying to them. And he was telling them, if that's what you choose to be willingly, you choose to be a slave, to ignore what's going on here, not get involved. And so, fine, go home, live your life in quiet desperation, and hope that the revolutionaries win, and maybe you'll have a little bit more freedom for the time being. Or if they lose, they'll take pity on you or whatever for not actually getting involved. But the whole point here is he's saying, if that's your attitude, we don't even want to know you. We don't want to know you, because that speaks volumes about who you really are deep down inside, a coward. He was basically telling them, you're cowards. And you don't really stand up for real values. You don't really stand up for rights and freedom. And he was saying, go home and, enjoy your bondage. May your chains set lightly on you. And your name should not even be remembered. That your posterity should forget that you were the people who were here at this time and could have acted and could have done something. You deserve to be forgotten. And is that harsh? Yeah. Absolutely it is.
Absolutely.
Is it true? It is absolutely true as well.
Absolutely, it's true. And because I'm over it. I'm over it, Mark. I was a proponent big time in the New Age movement. You can see my videos. I haven't taken them down. Everything I have done and everything I have been, it's all out there. All the good, the bad, the ugly, the magnificent, and everything in between. And, the reality is, when, I'm a being of unconditional love. I am, but people don't understand what unconditional love means. They don't. They have the New Age version or definition of it, but they don't understand what it truly means. The sun loves you unconditionally. Is it going to burn the crap out of you when there's certain parameters involved in your circumstances? Of course it will. It's not, but it loves you unconditionally. There's parameters to living within its solar embodiment, which we have incarnated into. Will Mother Earth hurt you in a tornado or a windstorm or an ice storm or animals on the planet? Of course they will, given the parameters of the circumstances you are in at the time. Does she love you unconditionally? Of course she does. But people don't understand what unconditional love is. They've forgotten it. And I'm basically saying I am going to be real, going to be honest, and I'm going to call out those, just as I called out and exposed Queen Bitch of the Universe. I'm outing her. Well, guess what? I'm going to out people too, not by name, but I'm going to out those to do with qualities, to do with integrity, or shall I say the distinct lack of. Because you are a proponent of slavery in this world, and we need to truly get our soul expression. We need our authentic selves to be present. You need to do the hard work, get onto your shadow side, embrace all of you, all the beautiful, positive, loving aspects that you are, all the dastardly, evil and dark shadow aspects that you are. Embrace all of you. Integrate it, embody your soul in this world, empower yourselves, and get to action, because this world is going into a very difficult and challenging time, and it is basically our responsibility and our obligation to be present and to be accounted for during these times. That's why we came to this world.
That's exactly right. And to touch on a couple of the things you brought up here, you know, the New Age community that has been derailed from being the real spiritual warriors that came here, incarnated here to lead a slave rebellion, they've been sold on this notion of, it's a false notion of what spiritual enlightenment is about. Not only does it not incorporate both the non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle, but it doesn't understand that the variant of so-called enlightenment that they're talking about is, one, it's an unattainable standard because it's like likened to perfection of some sort, which perfection doesn't exist in the physical reality. You're not going to be perfect. No, as long as you're in a human body, you're imperfect. Okay. But the main thing other than that they are espousing is that that this doesn't have something to do with the notion of authority. What real spiritual enlightenment has to do with is deeply recognizing that there is no such thing as authority vested in humanity. Human beings aren't an authority of any kind. Okay, and the New Age movement looks at this as some sort of a political issue. Okay, and they never bring up the notion of that government is slavery. See, because they don't want to be looked at as anarchists. See, a New Ager who might think he's on the path, he or she is on the path to enlightenment, right? And you ask them, are you an anarchist? They'll say, oh, no. I did this personally. I went to, there's a yearly expo here in Philadelphia. It's called the Mind, Body, Spirit Expo. And I'm not promoting it. I'm just telling you what the name is. It comes to Philadelphia like once a year, and they have it in like an arena or, a big convention center. And, I went a couple of years back, and I I would engage different New Agers that were there, and I would ask them, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Do you believe in government at all in general? Do you think government needs to exist or should exist, etc.? And I would just go person to person, just real quick question, and just, get an idea of their answers. And I'm telling you, over 90% of people there either responded that they were either a Republican or a Democrat, believed in government, believed government should and must exist, and they thought that they were on the road to enlightenment.
Yeah, because it comes down to one main issue, which you have worded beautifully, and that is called the real divide. Is this what you're alluding to now?
Yes, it is. There's only one real spiritual divide that exists between anybody on earth. All the other forms of, separation, age, sex, religion, politics, class, etc. All of these things are just socially divisive tactics to divide people and, set up a divide and conquer strategy by the controlling class. And essentially, there's only one real true divide that exists in humanity that makes us truly different. And that criterion is whether or not we believe in authority invested in human beings. Do we believe in authority and believe that certain people have the moral right to issue commands to other people, and they're like the masters who get to make up the law, and then all other people are like their subjects who have a moral obligation to obey the commands that are issued by this master class? That's called authority. And most people believe in that. Then there's a smaller class of people who are really spiritually waking up, who understand that there is no such thing in reality as authority. It's all a construct that exists in the mind, and it's something that people believe in, and it doesn't exist in nature. And that's, those people are what I call anarchonists, people who don't believe in the archons right to rule.
Yeah.
They've traditionally been called anarchists. And, the New Age movement people don't want that label placed on them. They just want, to do this, to stay in their very I guess you could say non-combative, they don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I don't want to make this political. Well, I'm sorry, but real spirituality is all about talking about the political aspects of the world. It's all about recognizing that politics is an illusion and authority is an illusion, and there is no body between you and the creator of the universe, and that right and wrong are objective standards that we need to align our perceptions to and then live in the real world. So, this is something that the New Age movement really doesn't get at all in many cases. Some people are starting to wake up to it, but we have to understand this is the dividing characteristic. This is what separates people from each other. This is the criteria. The criteria is whether or not they believe in authority. And for someone to be a really spiritually enlightened being, they must have stopped believing in authority. That is the criteria. Spiritual enlightenment involves deeply the non-belief in authority, or in other words, being an anarchist. A true anarchist. And let me break down the word briefly for people who may have a negative shock connotation to this word, okay? What it really means is that there are no rulers. It doesn't mean there are no rules or that there is chaos. It means that there are no rulers. It means that it comes from the Greek language. The etymology of anarchy is a or an means not present or absent in the Greek language when you tack it onto a word. And then the second part of the word is archon. Okay, in Greek, archon means master or ruler. So to put them together, an archon or anarchy means without a master or ruler, or a master or a ruler is absent. Okay, there is no master or ruler, therefore there are no slaves or subjects, therefore there is no master-slave relationship. Yes. And that's all the word anarchy has ever meant. And when you tell people, if you ask people, that's what the word anarchy means. Anarchy absolutely does mean no masters, no rulers. Yes. If you write that down on a piece of paper, no masters, no rulers, no master-slave relationship exists. You write that phrase down on a piece of paper and you say, give me a one-word response to that. People will say freedom. But then if you tell them anarchy, give me a one-word response to that, they'll say chaos.
Yes.
And that's mind control to a perfect extent.
It's a programmed response, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It is the obfuscation of the true definition of words. There's no better form of mind control than that. If you can get somebody to believe that a word that originally means freedom now means chaos, you've done a complete mind control job on them, and in a big way, and you've done the job right.
Well, while we're on the subject of that, can I ask you, because, I've pondered about this word, and I remember having a life involved in this group, if you want to put it that way. But I remembered the true meaning of the word. And when I heard you talk about it, I went, yes, he's somebody else that knows. Okay. And I don't talk about this word often because at the moment in the world, it is so tainted again. It is misused. It is misrepresented. And for a purpose, like when they took the symbol of the wheel of the Buddha and they used it as the Nazi symbol. Well, if you try using that symbol anywhere in the world today, what's the first reaction going to be? You're a Nazi, right? So it's interesting how they take all these symbols and these words and they put that twist on them. And the word is Illuminati.
Yes, there's a big one. And it means so many different things to so many different people now because they have, certain ideas embedded of what that concept means and represents. And all it really means in Latin is illuminated ones. It's plural. It's a plural word, and it means those who are of the light or are illumined. Okay? And if you really think about this, this is a complete bastardization in the context that it's being used. If we're using this to mean the controllers of the world, they're not illuminated.
No,
they're not of the light.
In fact,
they're at the bottom of a dark garbage can, as far as I'm concerned.
The people listening to this,
you can't get any darker than that. Yeah.
Yeah. The listeners to this, Mark, the people who are listening to us right now, realize you are Illuminati. You are an enlightened person with true knowledge. That's all it means. It doesn't mean a secret society. It may have at one stage because, the people who are really truly enlightened used to, have secret meetings and behind closed doors because they didn't want to be burnt at the stake.
Right. And the dark occultists that took on this term, they saw themselves as we have the light because they have the knowledge of how the human psyche works and how the laws of nature work. And they're using them in their knowledge, knowing that other people were ignorant of these concepts. They're using them as a weapon to gain a power differential over others. There's nothing enlightened in that. So I may refer to these people as the darkly illuminated ones. They have the intellectual knowledge, but they're using it for the wrong purposes, for enslavement instead of people's edification and freedom. Okay, so I would refer to them as those who are maybe illuminated with the dark light, the light of the dark sun. One of their symbols, you mentioned the Nazi swastika, which was, of course, a perversion of the swastika of the Indus Valley traditions, okay, which that symbol originally was a sign of the sun and meant good fortune and knowledge, okay? Of course, the Nazis took it and turned it upside down. They turned it backwards, I should say. Yeah. Just like a Satanist will take the cross of that represents the sacrifice of Christ and turn that into an upside down cross, which means, the ideas of esoteric Christianity put down, okay, turned upside down. Yes. So that's what dark occultists will do. They'll take existing symbols. They don't create anything on their own. They just take existing symbols and then they bastardize and pervert them. That was done with the swastika. And another thing they did this with was the victory rune, the rune in the ancient runic system that meant victory or triumph, or many people would say enlightenment or triumph of spirit, was the Sieg rune. And what the Nazis did is they took this Sieg rune and they duplicated it 12 times in the 12 houses of the zodiac and put them all together. And they embedded this sign on the floor at the castle of Wewelsburg. Wewelsburg is where the SS were initiated into the Schutzstaffel, is what that stood for. It was the secret police, the secret police squadron that basically acted as, the ones who attacked anybody who was against the Nazi party politically in the Third Reich. And they initiated their high-ranking membership at this castle, and in the floor of the castle, in the main hall, they had this symbol of 12 runic Sieg runes, which were placed in a circle and then surrounded by an outer circle, and it looks like a huge sun, a solar symbol, because the Sieg rune, like lightning bolts, make rays around the central point. And this was called, and you could look this up on any search engine you care to. This was called the symbol of the black sun. Yes. So they considered themselves the enlightened ones, or the quote unquote Illuminati, the ones who are enlightened because they had the knowledge and they were using the knowledge as a weapon to control others. So they called themselves the Black Sun Order. This was the central secret society, dark occultic order that ran and controlled the Third Reich. And many people will have never even heard of the Black Sun. In German, it was Die Schwarze Sun. Mm-hmm. And that is the Black Sun. So look up this order, and it was still very secretive to this day. Many people don't know about that. This was a secret society within a secret society in Nazi Germany. It was the secret society that ran the Schutzstaffel, and Himmler was a member of it, as well as so many other of the high-ranking SS.
Dietrich Eckart and
I'm sure he was up there as well. I'm sure people like Hans Kammler were members as well. They use the symbol of light in a twisted capacity, because in this whole field of symbolism, symbolically, light has always represented knowledge. That's the key thing to keep in mind here. So Freemasons use the symbol of light. The reason they do this is because the words attributed to the creator of the universe in the biblical account, creating the universe, were fiat lux in Latin. Fiat lux means let there be light. Okay, the power of the word to create light and then propagate that knowledge. So it's like what we really have to do is come into knowledge, and then we become enlightened. I mean, true knowledge, knowledge of truth. And then we speak that out to other people. That's what the great work is. Just coming into that knowledge, you don't just say, well, I'm okay now and I understand the truth and I'm not going to do anything and it's everybody else's responsibility. No. You have a responsibility to then put that word, that knowledge, that light back out into the universe to shine it into a world of darkness so other people can then become enlightened themselves. That's what the responsibility that you carry with you when you become enlightened is all about. And many people will stop short and say, no, I have some knowledge about spirituality and I'm good. It's helped me in my life in some ways. And therefore, if other people are messing up their life and messing up other people's life because they're still ignorant, well, that's on them. And I have no responsibility to speak out and try to change that. And that's nonsense. And that's not what true spiritual work is. And that's not what true spirituality or true spiritual responsibility is all about. And this is something we need to continuously counter that is put out there by the New Age community. It is all about first becoming enlightened yourself, yes, through knowledge, but then it is about putting that information back out there for other people to pick up, and then they can do that same work that you performed upon yourself to themselves. That's what the true great work is all about.
Brilliant. My goodness, I just love conversing with you and engaging with you, because you really speak from the heart, you speak from passion, and you speak from the core essence of natural law, as you call it, universal law, how I call it. And I just love it. I just love how we can be direct, concise, succinct, and raw. That's what I love about it, is the raw nature of, we don't have to sugarcoat anything here.
That's right. There's no time for that either. The place that we've come to in our reality, there's no time to sugarcoat it or try to baby spoon feed it to people. We're all ostensibly anyway adults here, and just say it the way that it is, and let the chips fall where they may. If people get offended, get offended.
The children will be offended.
Right. To become adult, to become a true adult, we have to be a little bit hardened and swallow that so-called red pill, that pill that awakens us. Whoever said it was going to taste sweet like a jelly bean? Sometimes that's a very bitter pill. And it involves, again, this idea of breaking systems down. Former belief systems that are calcified have to be broken apart, chipped away. That takes force. That takes energy. That's not necessarily a nice process. Sometimes, when you break something apart like that, there's all pieces flying everywhere. Pieces could hit you in the eye. There's all dirt on the ground that you're going to have to sweep up later. That's what happens in a destructive process. So I've always taken this type of attack that is straightforward. I'm not trying to trick people into understanding what I'm saying. You have to do the work yourself to take on that responsibility and do that heavy lifting. Okay. And if you can, fine, great. And people will wake up. And if they can't, they can't. It is what it is. But people should not expect me to change my style. It is a straightforward wrecking ball approach. I like that approach. For me, that approach is successful, and it has worked on the other adults that are out there, or the partial adults. For the absolute bottom line children, and yes, there are people that exist like that. We're not trying to denigrate anyone by using that term. Okay, it's not just an outright attack. It's the way that it is. There are people who are in spiritual infancy right now. There are certain others who are like adolescents and semi-adults who are learning and growing, and then there's adults. And, we can't we're not doing a service to anybody by sugarcoating this information. It's ultimately going to create more harm to sugarcoat this, especially at the time that we are in. It is so late in the game. It is so late in the day. We have to come forward and speak the truth unapologetically. Those who are ready to hear it will hear it, and then they will wake up and they'll assist others in waking up as well. So that's going to be my tact. That's going to be my approach, and don't expect it to change.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Love it. And I need to ask you the question now, personal question.
Sure.
What are your own personal tenets that you live by? So what does Mark have his own personal tenets that he chooses to live by?
Yes, and the answer to that essentially is it is no one system of philosophy. It is what I call an integral system. So in other words, I would, while I study hermetics, I would not say, if you said, Mark, are you a hermeticist? I would not say, I am just a hermeticist and nothing else, and that's what I am. I study Freemasonry, and in its original esoteric context,
Yes.
Freemasonry is a powerful spiritual system that is teaching people what morality really is and how to live a moral life. Now, that's not what the lodge system of Freemasonry is or is doing. It may
Yes.
have originally been intended as that, but in today's world, I would tell you that this system is completely corrupt. Okay.
Yes.
So would you say, Mark, are you a Freemason? Well, I consider myself what you might call an esoteric Freemason in philosophy, but I'm not going to just tell you I'm a Freemason and nothing else. I study Rosicrucianism, but again, esoteric Rosicrucianism, a little bit different than what the modern Rosicrucians may be teaching, but I'm not going to tell you that's all I am. I study Kabbalah. Are you just a Kabbalist and that's what you consider yourself to be? No. I study esoteric Christianity. Are you just a Christian? Okay, I'm none of those things and all of those things combined, and many other things. I study Thelema. So would you say you're just a Thelemite? No, it's part of the integral makeup of my overall philosophy. I take the best parts of whatever systems are out there, aggregate them, integrate them, and then form it into a overarching total integral system that works and that is resonant with natural law. But ultimately, what I would just say that I am is an eternal follower of truth. That's what everybody should aspire to be. You got to go where the truth leads. If you're tacking an ism onto something, you're creating a calcified ideology. It's not a philosophy, and it's just going to become something that derails you from the truth. And isms are what need to go. They're part of religion. Okay? I say one of the quotes I really like that I've put out there is that we need to stop trying to make our religion the truth, and we need to start making truth our religion.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
and that
brilliant.
can only be done with an integral approach to knowledge, and that's what I would consider that I practice.
You know, and the beauty of the pursuit of truth leads to your authentic self from within.
That's it.
It's quite simple, really, isn't it?
That's how you come to know the self. You know, you come to know the self and you'll know the truth. You come to know the truth, you'll know the self. It's all a huge grand circle, you know, like they said in the Hermetic tradition, know the self and you will know the universe. And it's
Yes.
true. That's it. It's
Yeah.
because it's one and the same. You know, we are aspects of the all is within us and vice versa. So it's all one thing. It's all just about coming to understand it better. And that's what this whole thing is here for. That's what the universe, the whole construct is here to learn and grow about itself. And that's what we're here for, to learn and learn about ourselves and grow in consciousness and spirituality. Absolutely.
Yeah, because what we have on the planet at the moment, and this is going to go to a whole new level, what I'm about to share, and it's the basic concept of what Mark calls 2 + 2 = 5. I love that premise. And the basically the mind-bending philosophies, the propaganda on this planet, the implementation of a new financial system and the implementation of a one world order and a one world religion, which is we're on the precipice of that being implemented right very soon. So I would love for you to talk about 2 + 2 = 5, because it is really important for people to understand that concept and be prepared for what's coming, because your mind is about to be assaulted big time in this world, and people need to be ready for that.
This is what I refer to as emotional mind control. And it's a very powerful tactic that it's a mind control technique that really works well on people who are already somewhat or very imbalanced toward the right brain hemisphere. And those who have a very advanced and developed emotional makeup, okay, but have not done a lot of work with logic and linear progression in processing information and knowledge, okay, and they don't do a lot of research and left brain thinking, let's put it that way. They're fully geared toward the emotional and intuitive side. And again, I'm not attacking those qualities. They're so necessary, okay? The emotions are what put us on our direction, our compass for our life, really. Emotions do that. They center us and they guide us like a compass. for moral direction in life. But you can't really reason and think with the emotions. Okay, so there's a tactic that keeps people off from learning the truth that is put out there by the control system. And I've simply termed this tactic emotional mind control. Okay. It's what I call heart control. All right. People talk about mind control. I like to coin this term heart control. All right. And it kind of works like this. I'll give you an anecdote first, and then I can go a little deeper into it. But a friend of mine liked Barack Obama when he was running for president, voted for him and everything. And, even seeing that he continued the policies that were ushered in under Bush, Clinton, and then Bush Sr. as well, that he didn't really change anything, and he did all the same types of control-based systems, even less transparency in government when he promised more transparency, and all this NSA spying done under him, and he's trying to justify it all. The person still won't acknowledge that they were wrong about it and that they were played and got bought into the whole emotional drama of hope and change. Because, he was just telling people that, and then they could graft onto whatever that means. They just graft on their own ideas to that. So it was tugging on their emotions to say, I'm going to go create hope in the world and change the world. And, he didn't really go into such depth during the campaign of what he was going to create change regarding. But so anybody who was hearing him, this is a good mind control technique. They're grafting their ideas of what change means onto his platform or his campaign. And, my friend basically, in recognizing even at a conscious level, he's not doing anything different than anybody did before. They're saying, well, but he's such a nice man. And when I see him, he looks so nice. He looks nice. He has such a nice smile, and he dresses so well, and he's got a family, and he seems to care about his family. He's hugging them and, smiling toward them, and his children look really good. They're good-looking kids. And it's like, can you gauge someone's morality and behavior based on how they look or how you feel when you look at them? Okay, so it's like this idea of you could put that attractive blonde newscaster, with absolutely no body fat and, wearing a nice woman's business suit or business dress on the air, and put her up there and spout you a bunch of lies that she's been told to read by the propagandists. Is that going to make it true? Well, you might look at her and she might look real nice, and it might make you feel good to look at her. And that's the tactic that they're playing.
Yeah, the warm and fuzzies.
It's playing on an aesthetic and playing on an emotional response. So the concept of emotional mind control is it does not matter in the slightest bit what something does to your emotional makeup. Okay, your emotional makeup is not going to determine veracity or truthfulness of information. All your emotional makeup is doing is providing feedback to, your cells about an initial response that you have to something aesthetically, okay, or how it makes you hear when you feel it. So, when I talk, my tones may be harsh or disciplinarian or even nasty to some people, but that doesn't mean what I'm saying isn't true. So, another aspect of this is like aesthetics. Like, so let's put it this way. I would watch some Manly P. Hall videos, and he would hit me in these not documentaries, but in these these filmed lectures that he did. It was like a light bomb, some of the information that he was coming out with. I mean, this guy was one of the most knowledgeable teachers out there, and he lectured on the lecture circuit till he was like 92 years old. It's unbelievable, his dedication and resolve. But anyway, I'm watching this with someone, and they're saying, well, his voice just wears on me. And I'm sitting there like my eyes are like as wide as a frog going, oh my God, the stuff he's saying, what the information he's conveying. And the other person is just like, I can't even stand to listen to him. Like, his voice is so droning and monotone. And yeah, it's true, but it's like you have to, if you're really going to get to the truth about something, you have to set all of that aside. And you have to say, what is being said here? What is the message? Forget all the trappings of the message. How it's being said doesn't matter. What the person looks like doesn't matter. What the person sounds like doesn't matter. And to an extent, even their presentation style doesn't matter. Now, of course, I think things you can learn more effectively if someone has a good presentation style as far as slides and information goes. But you could even work to get past that. It may take a little bit longer, but I like a logically oriented presentation that is maybe even have some nice graphics or visuals in it, and that is conducive to my learning. But I don't have to have that stuff to understand what somebody is saying. I'll trudge through it anyway. If it's even boring, I'll trudge through it. And believe me, there are boring presenters out there who do not know how to make an aesthetic presentation, and their information is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Yeah.
So you have to try to extract the gold, even if you're dealing with some lead. Okay. That's a lot of people's problem. They can't go past what their emotions are feeding back to them, that this is uncomfortable or unpleasant or I don't like it. It isn't about what you like. It's about what's true or not. So, I give the example, there could be this truther out there, who's talking about 9/11 with a bullhorn, and he's screaming in your ear that building 7 was imploded into its own footprint. Buildings don't naturally collapse like that. No plane hit it, and et cetera, et cetera. And he's got a bullhorn, and he's saying, you people are, I can't believe you still buy this nonsense, screaming through the bullhorn at people. But that's the truth. He's still saying what is true, regardless of how it's being said, regardless of how crazy he may sound saying it, regardless of how harsh it may be, or if people don't like hearing it. It's still the truth, period, nonetheless. Then that blonde newscaster gets up there on the 6 o'clock nightly news, and she's telling people that aspartame isn't harmful for your body. It's been approved by the FDA, and studies have shown that it's perfectly safe, and it's not a neurotoxin, and it doesn't create neurological dysfunction, etc. And she's saying it in a nice, pleasing, even maybe sexy voice, and everybody's going, oh yeah, nodding their head, because it makes you feel good. Okay, so you can get up there and scream and whisper in that soft, sexy voice all you want, with the attractive look that 2 + 2 = 5, and nothing is ever going to make that true from now until the end of eternity. But yet somebody could, be, on the street with a bullhorn that they found in a trash can with disheveled clothing because they live in an alley, because they have no money, and they can get up there and tell you slavery is illegitimate and that's what this government is. Okay? And it doesn't make a difference if no person in the world listens to what they have to say, it's still going to be true. It is still true. That's how truth works. And we have to stop. And this ties it all in full circle, George, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
This is about solipsism, making up what we want to be true and believing that only our perceptions are true. Well, your perception of that newscaster doesn't matter in the slightest bit, not one iota. All that really matters is whether what that person is saying is true or not. Your perception of that homeless person who pulled that bullhorn out of a trash can and started screaming truths through it a foot away from somebody's ear, the perception of that doesn't matter. All that matters is whether it's true or not. And that's what breaking down emotional mind control is all about. So many people are stuck in this dynamic that I can't even tell you. It's just unbelievable how many people are stuck there about saying, well, your tact I don't like, and you have to start saying it like this. I don't need to start saying it any other way. I need to say it the way I'm going to deliver it, because I'm the one who's saying it. If you want to hear it a different way, by all means, pick up the ball, take that information, and go present it in a different way, the way you like and the way you think people will hear it. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me I have to adjust my approach. My approach is mine. Okay? So, and this is what I get this a lot, and my answer to people like this is, I'm not changing a damn thing about the way I present this information. I like the way I present. I feel great when I present. It charges me with the energy of the spirit of the universe, and I know I'm on the right track because I'm speaking the truth, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I tell people who respond like that, I say, look, Instead of saying you should go out and do this, how about if you just do it? Skip the part about trying to convince me to do it the way you want, and you take the information and go do it
Exactly.
however you want. That's it.
Exactly. You
You
step
know,
up to the plate. You put
that's
yourself
it.
out there and you do it
Because
how
the
you
answer
think
is,
I
you know
should
what
be
else I
doing it.
do George, when people email me this stuff, right? You know what I do? I always Google their name. I Google their full name. You
Yep.
know what comes back? A big goose egg. A big, huge goose egg comes back on Google. It's as if they don't exist. Google hasn't even heard of them. The NSA, Google search engine, hasn't even heard of these people. That's how under the radar they fly. Okay, you can Google their name and there's nothing there. I tell people in presentations, you want to know how I can tell how spiritually awake you are? From how active you are. I want to Google your name. If I find your name and I click on the page and there's your website and you're putting out deep, profound spiritual truths on the web, in writings, in podcasts, in videos. I go to your YouTube channel or I go to other people's pages and there's your name there. I know you're involved in the great work. And if I can't find you on Google, you're not doing a thing. I don't care who you're talking to in person. If you're not putting it out there in the widest and freest way available that is possible through technology right now, because that's the medium of getting this word out on a global scale, then what you're doing is you're sitting back, you're an armchair quarterback who's telling other people go do the work while you're sitting on your lazy rear end on a couch someplace, okay? And you're playing it safe. All right, that's what these people are doing. So
Yeah.
they're going and telling people like you, they're going and telling people like me, people like Alex Jones, people like David Icke, oh, you should do it like this. No, we should do it exactly as we're doing it now. You want to know why? Because we're doing it. We're doing it. That's the key to keep in mind here. We're doing it and you're not doing it. All ties back to not taking action, because these people want to fly under the radar and they want no personal responsibility for their own behavior. And they're armchair quarterbacks ultimately because they're cowards, and they're cowards because they have self-loathing issues deep down in the psyche. And until those issues are healed, they're never going to develop that bravery to put that work out there and to take on that personal responsibility to do that great work. That's what this is all ultimately about. It's about taking action. So, that's what emotional mind control is. It's people who say, I don't want to hear it this way. Well, it doesn't matter how you want to hear it. All that matters is whether it's true or not. If you want to put it out there in a different way, by all means, the world is your oyster. Be my guest.
Wow. Magnificently expressed. And, the judgment that comes from people, because I cop the judgment too, is really them venting through their eyes of pain. They are venting the pain of the abandonment, the pain of their child syndrome that they have within themselves. And they're just judging. It's just pure judgment. That's all it is. And it's very, very sad. And I do say to people, I respond to some. I don't respond to all, but I do respond to some. I feel what needs to be responded to. And, a lot of these people are just keyboard heroes. That's all they are.
Right.
They can hide behind a pseudonym. They think they can just say whatever they want. They're just smart asses and they're keyboard heroes. You lurk in the shadows, right? They lurk in the shadows behind a pseudonym. And you think, well, how different is that from the dark entities that lurk in the shadows that want to harass us and feed off our energies? Is their behavior any different? No, it's not.
Because it's still preventing the truth from getting out there in the widest and freest way possible. And that's the only thing that's going to set this world free, And if they're not involved in that process, they're involved in the problem. They're involved in suppressing that process.
Exactly.
So, I think that's probably a good place to leave it off for now and let people digest some of that. And I think that really kind of places the ball back in their court as well, because that's what it's really ultimately about. It's about them stepping up to the plate and carrying some of this burden. It's not about just a few people doing it. Like I said, people like George, and myself, we're out there doing it. And we're not saying that we want to be like considered heroes or martyrs for having done this and sacrificed so much of our time and life for doing this. We're doing this because we recognize a moral imperative and a moral obligation to put this information out there for people. The thing that would make us the happiest, and I don't want to totally speak for you, but I'll say the thing that would make me the happiest is not that people just praise us for us putting information out like this and trying to wake up the world to true spirituality and true freedom. It's to get involved in that process yourself and start helping us do it. Start helping us put that information out there. Don't just say, oh, great job, tap on the back, and that's it. We're still on the field, ladies and gentlemen. We're still trying to move the ball downfield. We're still trying to carry that weight of that huge stone that we have to get up the mountain. Instead of just a kind and encouraging word, I tell people the best thing you could send me, you want to send me something that'll make me happy during the day. And I'm not saying don't send me a nice email that says thank you for what you're doing. I'm not telling people not to do that. I'm saying that'll make me feel good and that the work I'm doing is appreciated. But the thing that will make me feel the best, send me something about what you are doing. That's what I want to see and hear. Give me a link to your website or your YouTube page where you're rebroadcasting this information or putting it out there in your style. That's what's going to make me feel great, because that's going to show me, okay, if I inspired you to take action, not just to know the truth, but to take action based on what you know. That's how you're doing the work, So that's the thing that makes me feel the best. When I get a link from somebody and they say, hey, you inspired me. Here's my new blog. Here's my new webpage. Here's my new YouTube channel. Here's the new video I just produced. Here's the new song I just wrote that incorporates these concepts into it. Here's the new art piece I just drew that's a spiritual allegory inspired by your work. Wonderful. That's the stuff that I want to see more and more and more of. People actually doing something and taking action to change this world for the better. So, George, I want to just thank you again so much for inviting me onto the show. And you're a phenomenal host, and the work that you do is so important. And I want to thank you for everything that you have put out there for people to digest and continue with your great work, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I truly appreciate your acknowledgement, and it goes both ways. And I'm very, very honoured to have had you on the show. And my wife Cynthia says that you and I, Mark, we're not a couple of Hollywood boys. We're not the pretty Hollywood boys that so many New Age luminaries are. We don't portray that image. She considers us to be real men doing the real work.
That's it. I'm just someone who grew up in the city of Philadelphia and happened to uncover the truth through dedication and hard introspective work upon myself through years of suffering. That's how it happened, through going down all the wrong paths initially, and then finally my ego breaking and cracking and saying, I can't do it like this anymore. I have to change, and that's what this is all about. And it's being real. It's about being real people, not trying to put on some persona, to just be real and be honest. That's what'll get us there. So if I may just give out my website.
I was about to get to all of that, Mark. Please share your information, because I know people will get so much value and substance from the information you are sharing and your message in life. It's beautiful.
Thank you, George. My website, ladies and gentlemen, is whatonearthishappening.com. That, once again, www.whatonearthishappening.com. There's a huge body of knowledge up there. Okay, so you could check out the videos section if you prefer that media. And my suggestion to people is always the audio information really carries the most dense information. That's on my podcast page. You can click the podcast tab of the website, and I suggest going back to number 1 and starting in order and moving forward with those podcasts. If you do that, again, it will open up a very different worldview, and it will begin the deconditioning process and get you onto some resources that really are geared toward the truth and toward changing this world for the better. So that's at whatonearthishappening.com. I recommend the podcast section and going back to number 1 and progressing forward in order at your own pace and your own leisure. And when you do that, you'll probably get the most value out of the information up on that website. So George, thank you once again, and we could do this at any other time you want. Just give me a shout.
Thank you, Mark. Truly appreciate it. Shine bright, brother. I really am so appreciative that you've come to the world, to the planet, to really support us in ending the slavery of this world.
That's what it's all about, George. Thanks again so much.
See you, mate.
Well, listeners, there you have it. A most compelling and intriguing episode between two truth warriors who really do care about our humanity, our spiritual and emotional well-being, and the circumstances that enslave us. I am sure many of you will have gotten so much out of this no-nonsense discussion, which has left us all with a rich body of content to contemplate and consider. Wherever you are, be well, be safe, and most of all, be you. Stay tuned for another empowering episode of Super Woo Radio.